Hi everyone, I hope that your weight loss progress is going great. In today's module, we are going to cover some questions that come straight from the heart. That is people's pain, right? That why is the other person losing weight quickly but I am not losing weight quickly? What is the one thing that I can do so that my weight loss progress gets enhanced, right? But it's not just about losing weight, it's also about getting health educated alongside. So today we're going to cover a very important topic. That is why some people lose weight quickly, but others have a hard time. They really find it challenging to lose weight, right? What is the root cause of that? Before we jump into this topic, I want to cover the topic of insulin resistance. In the last module, I had mentioned this word of insulin resistance, but today I'm going to cover this in depth. So let's understand what is insulin resistance. I hope that by now all of you are aware what is insulin. Insulin is a hormone that is produced by the pancreas that helps us to stabilize the blood sugar levels. Now let's understand what is resistance. Okay. First thing that I want all of you to understand is that obesity is not an infection, it's a chronic condition, right? It builds up over a period of time. You'll not find someone who just dozed off last night and he woke up and he saw that he has gained 10 kilos. That will never happen. That scenario never happens. So you tend to gain 1 to 2 kilos year on year, right? It happens over a period of time, over months, over years. That is how you build obesity, right? And you'll also find people, some people have been obese from childhood versus other people get obese because of some reason or the other, right? It can be any reason, it can be personal, it can be professional, XYZ, we don't know. So people who have been obese from childhood, right? People whose parents are also obese, right? That is you can call it a generation past obesity. The people who are obese from childhood, they have a really hard time losing weight versus people who have been obese for a very short period of time. Right? Why does this happen? Right? So are you able to draw a correlation in your mind that people who are obese from childhood have a very hard time losing weight? They'll adopt n number of strategies, but still they land up at the same place, versus people who just gained weight and then they just do like some basic things and they'll quickly lose off weight. Why does this happen? We'll understand that as well. But the one correlation that I want to establish and help all of you to also establish in your minds, that obesity and time are interrelated, they are correlated. The longer you are obese, the harder it will be for you to lose weight. The shorter you are obese, the easier it will be for you to lose weight. So time frame matters, right? So I hope this answers the first question, that why some people are losing weight really quickly compared to others who have a hard time in losing weight, right? So this answers the question, but this is not the complete answer. Let's deep dive. Let's understand what is insulin resistance. The first thing that all of you should understand by now, that what is the flow of insulin. So when you eat, your blood sugar levels go up, the pancreas produces insulin, your insulin level go up, and then insulin stabilizes your blood sugar levels. But what happens in some cases? Let's understand with a very basic example. Consider your cell that wants to absorb the glucose, or let's make it more simpler. Let's say that your body wants to absorb glucose. So your insulin, that is the hormone, the insulin acts as a key. It opens up the lock of your cell, it opens up the lock of your body, and it allows the sugar to go in. That is how insulin functions in a very simple way. It is the key that opens the lock of your cell, or it is the key that opens the lock of your body, right? But sometimes what happens, the key does not start to fit. The key is a poor fit. So if the key is a poor fit, it will not be able to open the lock of the cell. If it is not able to open the lock of the cell, the blood sugar level will not go down because sugar is not able to enter the cell. Okay. Then what happens? If the sugar is not able to enter the cell, it will keep surrounding the cell. It will keep forming, as you can see in the diagram also I have shown. See, the sugar molecules, the sugar is surrounding the cell. It is not able to go in. Okay. In that case, what will the body do? It will start to produce more insulin, because body's role is to stabilize the blood sugar levels. If the blood sugar levels are not getting stabilized with the amount of hormone that is already in the body will produce more. And what will this lead to? Excess insulin in the body. And what did I tell you? Insulin is a fat storing hormone, right? So because of the resistance, because of the poor fit, the door will not open. If the door of the cell does not open, less glucose enters. And if less glucose enters, body will have to keep on producing more and more insulin to allow the same glucose to enter the cell. And that is a state of insulin resistance. To sum it up, to explain in very, very simple way, you can just consider that the key is a poor fit. Because the key is a poor fit, it is resistant. Your cell is resistant to that key. The cell has become resistant to insulin, right? That is the fundamental phenomena of insulin resistance. So again, if you see on the diagram that I have shown, because of insulin resistance, when the cell is suffering from insulin resistance, a lot of glucose will surround the cell, but very little will be inside because the gate is not getting opened, right? So now that you have understood what is insulin resistance, now that you have understood that the sugar is not able to enter the cell, then it is a state of insulin resistance. But let's understand, why do people suffer from insulin resistance? Okay, you understood the how part. Now let's understand the why part. Okay, now I'll not go into the scientific depth of this, but let's understand with the help of a basic analogy. Let's say when someone catches a viral infection, okay, the doctor tends to give him an antibiotic. What does the antibiotic do? The antibiotic kills the harmful bacteria, okay. But slowly you'll start to see that if the person is falling ill on a very frequent terms, the frequency of falling ill is very high, right? Slowly you'll start to see the doctor will have to prescribe a higher dose of antibiotic because the previous dose that used to work will not work anymore. The reason is that the bacteria is getting resistant to the antibiotic that is already being given. When the doctor is recommending a higher dose of antibiotic, that antibiotic is killing the bacteria, right? The previous dose is not working. So what is happening? The bacteria is getting resistant to the dosage that already is being given. Let's take a more simpler example. Say for example, if you have kids at home, if you shout at them, and at once, maybe the first time when you shout, they might cry. The second time you shout, they might get anxious and they might listen to you, right? But the third time you shout, they might not give the same reaction, right? They'll not have the same fear because they'll feel that shouting is normal. So then what you'll have to do, you'll have to shout twice. Again, your child might cry or he might adhere to what you are saying. But slowly you'll start to understand that over a period of time, you'll have to shout multiple times for the child to get to the same level of adherence. That means the child has got resistant to your level of shouting. And that is the principle of insulin resistance. But what we are trying to understand, why is the resistance building up? It is getting built up because of persistent exposure. So if something is exposed for a longer duration of time, that leads to building of resistance. So exposure causes resistance. Persistent and high level actually causes resistance. Now, if I go back, why are your cells getting resistant? Because when we are eating foods that are high on sugars, that are really spiking up your insulin levels, we are snacking, we are eating 6 times a day, or we have been suffering from obesity since long, right? The level of insulin resistance in the body is very high because your insulin levels are already high, and what is happening that the cells are getting exposed to high insulin, and if the exposure is high and if they are persistently getting overexposed, they will start to become resistant, right? So now this is the concluding slide of this module. I hope that you understood that why some people will lose weight really quickly, because they are less insulin resistant. Why some people will have a hard time losing weight, because they are more insulin resistant. The bottom line of obesity is insulin resistance. We have to break this insulin resistance for you to ensure that there is no rebound, right? So let's quickly sum up. High persistent insulin leads to insulin resistance. We established this fact. High insulin resistance will cause more insulin. Because if your blood sugar is piling around the cell, your body will have to pump more insulin for that same sugar to enter inside the cell, right? The higher the insulin level, the more the resistance, right? Because if your exposure to the cell is very high, it will start to build more resistance, and greater the resistance, higher the levels. It's confusing, but it's a vicious cycle, right? So if someone is insulin resistant, the exposure will come further high, and when the exposure is further high, the resistance will become more high. Right? How do you break this vicious cycle? What do we do to break this vicious cycle? Right? This is we call it a self-reinforcing. When something works in synergy, it's self-reinforcing, right? That is the vicious cycle. It's dangerous. This is what actually leads to the chronic condition of diabetes. It's the persistent high exposure of insulin, right? And the longer the cycle continues, the worse it will get. So in the next modules, we'll understand what to do to break this insulin resistance. And if you are struggling from weight loss plateau, if you're struggling to lose weight quickly, what can we do? What is the strategy that we can deploy to break this insulin resistance and ensure that your weight, the weight that you lose, never comes back? No rebound is what we want to achieve. But along with that, we also want to ensure that you understand the root cause of your obesity, and then you are able to break it. Get Bioma.